Welcome back to VIR. Now we've got some interesting stuff for you. Look at these beautiful cars for the Haycock Classic Gold Cup, live from Virginia International Raceway. And I'm excited because some of these cars are absolutely magnificent. We've got a real combination, LMP1, Indy cars, a couple of Lolas out there. And, well, Ben, I know you're excited by looking at this group.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and, you know, I love the LMP cars right there. That's David Porter and that Peugeot. Beautiful car. And
yeah, it is.
There in the number 2 is Travis Engen in that Audi. But right behind them, Hobie Buppert in that Lola. Unbelievable. Peter McLaughlin there in the 05. Peter McLaughlin is actually was the former owner of SVRA.
Well, we've got an original
Mac McCombs right there in the GT40,
yeah, that's
followed
an
by
original.
Kenneth Arders. You know, just really, really neat cars. Let me make sure I'm saying this right. I don't have the number. Oh, Patrick Bennett, the number 4 in that 1987 March. And I believe that's a Roberto Guerrero Indy car. Looks like it, at least. Maybe, I don't know if it's a tribute car or the car, but I'm guessing it might be the car.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And I was about to say we've also got GT40 Mac 1, and we've also got the Mac 4 out there as well. So we've got a 67 and a 68 out there, and we've also got a more modern GT40 as well. The sort of
So that car in second place is a 2007 Panos driven by Lewis Cooper Jr. We talked about Ben Sinnott. He's in the cool car right behind him. Ben Sinnott won the last race.
I was going to say.
And he's right back. And
busy boy.
Travis Engen right there in the number 2. So look for Travis to jump ahead and really give that other LMP car of David Porter a run. And they love racing together. I'm surprised that Travis didn't out-qualify, but he was stuck in traffic yesterday in a different race in Group 10. So look for him to jump out front because his handling in that car once his tires get to temp is unbelievable. You're going to be watching some slot cars going around this track.
Yeah, that Audi I've seen around the United States. I've seen it race at Sonoma before now, and if you get up close to it, you can see its whole history and who's driven it. And it's really a piece of art and also a piece of history. It really has got a storied history, having raced at Le Mans and, of course, raced in IMSA as well. So
I was talking to Travis yesterday, and he was telling me that Audi thinks it's the most winning Audi.
Yeah, I think it is.
Because of all of the vintage racing. He
yeah.
races, he probably does 15 to 16 events a year in that car. He's probably got more SVRA red hats than anybody in the world. We'll tell you about that later as Jonathan calls the start of this race.
Yep, here we go. The Maserati, our safety car, will pull off into the distance and lead them through hog pen for the start of this race. The Peugeot in the number 7. And at the wheel, David Porter in the 908 HDI FAP. And alongside him, Lewis Cooper in the Panos DP01. And a beautiful sound will roar into action. Let's hear it. Glorious. Group 7, 9, and 11 are away. We had the LMP1 cars in a different group yesterday, and I think they're more suited to this one.
Yes. I'm so much happier to see them in this one. As Travis Engen goes a little bit wide, but watch David Porter in that number 7 Peugeot, the 2007 Peugeot. The brakes and the balance of that car is unbelievable.
And the sheer acceleration. You could see him coming out of Horseshoe there, just how quickly he got on the gas and how easy it looked. Everybody filing through. There's the 2 Fords, line astern, and they're not. That's the first time I've actually seen a modern Ford GT40 and the older 68 version together on track, and you can see the newer version, much bigger car, but obviously to the dimensions.
The GT40, it's named GT40 because it was 40 inches tall.
high, yeah.
And they had to make the gurney bubble. And, the new Ford could never do that in the modern times to make a car that small. So,
no.
But you can definitely see that it was inspired by.
Completely, yeah.
So look at these lines here. This is a great shot to see who's really hitting these lines well and what the cars can do. Here comes Peter McLaughlin there in the number 4 car, followed by James Cullen. Some GT40s coming through right there. This is a really cool group. So I was talking earlier, Jonathan, about these SVRA red hats, the coveted red hats. The only way you can get, I don't have one. I've been the podium guy for SVRA for years. I hand them out with Kim and Tony, but if you get on the podium in your group, you get an SVRA red hat and a medal. And so I was talking to Travis because he races in 4 different classes with us in all the enduros. He's probably got more hats than we do. But this group right here, that $8 SVRA hat is probably the most expensive hat to these guys. So to win these hats, these guys are spending a lot of money to win these hats, and it's a beautiful shot right there. David Porter's also racing a red Lotus Cortina with us. Look at these shots.
I love the sound of these cars. Absolutely beautiful. David Porter's taken the lead over Lewis Cooper Jr. Ben Sinnott in 3rd position. Here he comes in the cool colored green and white. Then comes the Audi. Travis Engen at the wheel, and there you can see on the side of the car what I was talking about.
Yeah, it won 5 out of 6 Le Mans in the era that it ran in. Only 16 are made only 16 are made, and this was a top North American car for the series for Audi.
Yeah, I was talking to Alan McNish about that sort of era for Audi and how special it was. Unbelievable, really.
Yeah.
Over those years, they really were just so impressive. And they continue to be so, but this particular car that was so distinctive, and obviously they went into the diesel era when they went silent as well, and it didn't make any difference because they were so good. That was one of the conversations I had with McNish. He said when they went to diesel, and it was literally a whistling Audi, he said he had to have sound pumped into his ears because he didn't know when he was changing. He couldn't hear the gear change.
That's awesome.
So that's a way to learn, I suppose, but modern era.
Well, there's our drone shots. You're seeing some
Finally
great drone shots through there. We got them up in the air. There's Ben Sinnott here coming around Hog Pen. So he was able to get out of his Darth Vader winning car and then right into that cool car. And, I talked to a lot of our drivers because, for instance, Travis Engen, who's right behind him, he drives a 23B this weekend, a Lotus 23B. He goes into the Audi. He goes into his Formula B. And I always wonder how different it is because, their braking points are so different. Their speed is so different. And he said once you get in it, you feel it. It doesn't really matter what you're driving.
Yeah, I suppose there's a bit of adjustment, and I can't think you'd forget where your braking point was. And he's straight on it. 147.8 by this car on the last lap. That's a little bit slower than the leaders. 145.7 here at VIR, and that's not going slow by any means. The Audi that we're looking at now did a 149.9 last time out. Could go a little quicker, I'm sure. Out of stake they come and under the bridge and back up the hill towards the lodges. Oh, beautiful roar of these engines. We're up at the crow's nest, and we really get the full Dolby 5.1 surround sound here. And Bobby Bibbert in 5th place at the moment, behind Travis Engen in 4th, but it's David Porter who continues to lead, and the gap still less than a second.
Yeah, that's a good race right there, and 2 totally different classes, 2 totally different cars between David Porter and Lewis Cooper as they come down into the roller coaster. Hopefully we'll get a shot from Hog Pen. There's Hobie.
Yep.
So like we said, this is mixed group racing. He's currently in 1st place in the Group 7. And then even in the Group 7, there's different classes. So he's 5th overall, but winning in Group 7. And then the LMP cars, the prototype cars, are Group 11. There's 2 of those, Travis Engen and David Porter. And then Group 9 is the open-wheel Indy-looking cars.
Yeah, and that Lola T70 Mark III, we all wax rhapsodic about the GT40s, but that Lola's a pretty thing, too.
It is, and, the first original GT40s with Holman Moody were based on Lolas, constructed with. The first GT40s look a lot like Lolas.
Yeah.
And, it is still the principle. Basically, that's a British car with an American engine in it, and Ford said, well, why don't we do that? Yeah,
well, I was about to say, and truth be known, that when Ford were developing their GT40, they got British engineers and designers to effectively come up with the first design for the Ford GT40.
And some good British drivers as well.
Yeah, a couple. We had a couple back then. So, number 98. We're looking at now James Farley, currently 6th overall and 1st in 7U2.
James Farley's driving a 1978 Lola 298. Beautiful car right there. Look at that back wing.
I love he's got 3 mirrors. He needs them, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to see over that wing.
Well, especially in the fog, but great stuff by our drone
we got
pilots.
the leaders coming up to lap traffic here.
Yep. Well, it doesn't take them long to get past. Certainly not for David Porter. He just zipped by there. And likewise, Lewis has done the same.
No, it's good. I saw the flag. The flagman, if you're wondering if this is your first time watching road racing, they will display a blue flag with an orange stripe diagonally through it. And that is waved for the slower car to tell them, hey, look in your mirror, you've got cars coming behind you, and it's your job. In vintage racing, it's different from professional racing in the fact that it's the job of the person making the pass to make a safe pass.
Now, this is a good view of the first 2 corners here at VIR. You really get an excellent view of how these corners open up. You can see that the horseshoe, as we call it, the first corner, seems to go on forever, and literally is a 180, and it is a horseshoe, and then it goes into NASCAR, and the corner down that you're looking now in the bottom right of your corner is what's called left hook, and that's before it opens up into the section that is called snake through 5 and 6. Mark Sherwood currently in 12th position, not necessarily changing the world, but enjoying his day out. Getting onto the back straight behind the 2 Fords. And here comes the leader right behind them. You watch the power of that Peugeot. Look at him go.
And you can see the car in front of him got over, just like that's really good for him to do. Thank you for doing that. You can see the corner worker there waving the blue flag. Telling him we've got some great corner workers here at Virginia International Raceway doing their job. And you can see everybody kind of moving over, but still keeping with their race, because you've got Mac up there still racing with that modern GT40, but he doesn't want to interrupt what's going on in front. We definitely don't want to wad any of these cars up or bend any metal.
Yeah, he's going to wait through roller coaster until he gets on the main straight, and well, no, he hasn't.
But look at that.
I thought he might.
There's about 55 years of motorsports.
Yeah, I know, right there. The French Peugeot up against the American Ford. And the Le Mans prototype zips through, and we've got a good race on here between Lewis and David, because they haven't, despite the traffic, they haven't lost sight of each other.
No.
And even though David Porter in the Peugeot 908 is going good, he's not getting away from
he isn't.
the number 2.
And knowing David, it's bothering him. So he's looking in his mirror. And Lewis is a great driver, so he's up there just having a blast. You know, they're not racing each other. They're going to be on separate podiums, but it's still just fun to run with somebody and figure out where they're good and where you're good.
So the fog's starting to rise a little bit better. It's funny, interesting, the fog at the back part of the circuit, the south part of the circuit as we call it, is still thicker than it is here on the front straight. It's gone completely here now, glad to say. Here comes the 3rd place IndyCar.
I want to go back to that red GT40 of Mac McCombs and that modern GT40 of Michael Lang in the 2009. They're having a good battle. Michael Lang is in the 2009 Ford GT3 GT40 right there.
Yeah, it's an interesting, it took me by surprise because I've never seen that scheme before.
Yeah.
Till yesterday, the paint scheme, and it looks quite different in that dark paint scheme like that.
And he's got the aerodynamic advantage. Look at that, because he's got the big rear wing, and Mac, he has very little downforce and air effects on that.
It's good to see how different the cars are from the back, the 2 Fords.
Yeah.
Much wider, the modern one. The 2009 that came out almost as a surprise, really, when it did come out. No one really expected Ford to do it, but they did it, and everybody thought that was daring because why would they do it? But they did it anyway. And I was talking to somebody yesterday who was saying that when they first came out at auction, they didn't actually go up in value a great deal. But now the speciality Ford GT came out, which was literally a collector's item, and because of that, which came out last year and only 50 were made, now those are going up, and they can go for something like 300,000 or 400,000 now.
Look at the wind coming off of the little airfoils. Oh, he locks up his brakes. Oh, almost hits Mac in the rear. I'm so glad he avoided that. Nice job. But when they get up to speed, you can see the little airfoils coming off of the rear wings in these kind of conditions. And that's Patrick Bennett in the March 87C.
Yep.
And I need to text Roberto Guerrero and show him a picture of this. Say, is this your car? It looks like his car.
Yeah, it probably is. Certainly got the right spot. That's another thing, if you're new to SVRA, what they try to do also with the decals even, all the way down to the decals. They try to keep the parts as best they can. The only thing that really is a big difference is the safety, obviously, the roll bars and helmets and hands devices and so on, because you don't want to crash in an old car.
Yes, you do not. And they have gotten a lot safer with tire technology, with the Hans device, helmet technology, especially the fire suits, because back when a lot of these cars raced, they basically just took overalls, dipped them in starch, and wore some kind of a helmet, sometimes an equestrian helmet.
Put your cigarette out on them before you went out, and off you went.
One of our drivers gave me footage that he shot himself of 8mm, 16mm back in the 50s and 60s. And a guy in a race in a 356 comes in with a lit cigarette in his mouth into the pits as they're refueling. Just didn't think about it.
Yeah.
Look at this race for first.
I tell you, it's on, isn't it? Absolutely. The Peugeot's led most of the way, but it's not over here in the closing stages of this one. We've got a cracking race.
When you look at that era of car, I'm like, oh, he's in the DRS zone. We can use that. But not quite happening yet in vintage racing.
Now, who's that parked up?
That looks like it could be Hobie Buppart.
Oh, no.
Right there at coming into NASCAR. He's in a safe place, so it's good that he parked it in a safe place, but he's the number 82. Lola, he was in, we were saying he was winning first place, but not any longer. That's really unfortunate for him, but I'm sure the Sasco crew will sort that out.
Now, what can the Panos do? Down the back straight against the Peugeot. Quite different cars, but loving every moment of it. Lewis Cooper Jr. in second place, getting a little dust thrown in his face. He jigs to the inside. Listen to that Peugeot. You can hear it from here. And he just can't get quite close enough. Down through roller coaster they'll come.
Here we go. This will be a good shot. And watch the wings of these cars because you'll see some little airfoils coming off of them.
Look at the acceleration out of the corner from Peugeot. It's so quick. They've got some traffic in front of them.
Last lap displayed.
Oh, it's
and
all
we're
going
getting into
on.
lap traffic. This could get hairy, ladies and gentlemen.
And this is where Cooper Jr. is going to have a chance here on the final lap. Diving through the horseshoe they come, trying to weave their way through the traffic in these big cars. The prototype leading, the PlayStation Total sponsored Peugeot 908 up against the March. The Panos DP01.
That's a pretty car.
Yep. Like to see a brighter paint scheme on it, but like I said, you got to stay to the original. So through Snake they go for the last time and under the bridge. This has been a really, really good dogfight because there's been this distance between them throughout this race, and there's no question that Lewis Cooper Jr. has kept him honest.
You can really see from that shot the Peugeot has better grip and was really doing well, high speed through the S's. But now I think this this car here, this Panos, has a little bit more speed in the top end here.
Yeah, and he took a wider line through 12, through Oak Tree then, and he's tucking himself in, but I can't see the Peugeot being beaten now with a couple of corners to go. So then we finish our last lap with this great battle between David Porter in the Peugeot 908 as he comes through roller coaster. He's been chased hard by Lewis Cooper Jr. all race long, and I think they'll be shaking hands sportsmanlike because that was a great race, and he's still going at him. As they come to the line, it's neck and neck, and just about the Peugeot 908 wins. But that was good racing, and I can imagine that both of them really enjoyed that. Really good stuff. And as Ben Sissel was saying earlier, that Peugeot 908 was in a different class yesterday, and he was praying that they would be in this class today, and we got to see them at the front because at the back yesterday was both the Audi and the Peugeot. But that was a great little battle for David Porter and Lewis Cooper Jr. Travis Engen takes third place in the Audi R8 LMP, And everybody now coming. Ben Sinnott, who of course won the first race of the day, is just off the podium this time in 4th position. James Farley 5th. Philip Meany Jr. in 6th place. Peter McLaughlin in the March 822. Just behind in 7th place. And Mark Sherwood in the Rolt RT41 takes 8th place with Michael Lang 9th. And James Cullen in 10th position. So everybody taking the checkered flag for our second race of the day, SVRA. And I have a very special guest coming up after this, because we are going to be talking a little bit of Trans Am with one of my favorite drivers here, Tommy Dreesy. And when he gets in the booth, we might not let him go, actually. We'll have more fun with him in here. We could hear him on the radio yesterday, but he was having all sorts of fun. Anyway, we'll get to talk to him after this. But that ends our second race, our Group 5A, and that was a lot of fun. No question about it. So we've had Group 5A and now Group 7, 9 and 11, but more action to come from the iconic VIR circuit. And even though it's a little bit foggy, it is lifting. And of course those drones are some, 200, 300 feet up in the air, and you can see still a little bit of fog in the area. But just confirmation then, David Porter wins with the Peugeot 908 ahead of Lewis Cooper Jr., Travis Engen in 3rd place, Ben Sinnott 4th, James Farley 5th, Philip Meany Jr. 6th, McLaughlin 7th, Sherwood 8th, Lang 9th, and James Cullen. That's your top 10. We'll take a short break from VIR. We'll be back with some interesting stuff after this.